All right, it's 1:03 a.m. Hey everyone, my name is Raheem Idris and I'm going to be doing the workshop on Flutter today. So, for those of you who don't know, we're going to get straight into it. Oh, let me give a little background on myself. I am a computer science student here at Florida International University. I'm also the director of industry relations for Epsilon Pi Epsilon here at FIU, who is presenting you ShellHacks. And I am a huge advocate for Flutter, and I presented a previous workshop on Flutter before at Panther Hacks, which is another in-house FIU workshop that we did last summer, this previous summer. So, what is Flutter? So, for a lot of people that are confused, Flutter is a UI toolkit for building native mobile, web, and desktop apps. And in this workshop, we're going to be specifically focusing on mobile development. Now, what does that necessarily mean for someone who does mobile development, but they're not they technically do Android development, and then if they want to publish an iOS app, they go ahead and publish an iOS app. So what Flutter allows you to do is have one code base. So if you have, for example, if you want to work on one app, normally you would have two different code bases. You would have one for Android, where you do all your Android development, and then you would go ahead and translate that code into iOS native development, and you would go do iOS development. So let's say you have a bug and you realize it on your Android app, and now you have to go ahead and go deploy that same bug and fix it all the way in your iOS app. Flutter allows you to quickly push out an application and do it under one code base, and it compiles it for both iOS and compiles it for Android native as well. So that's extremely helpful for development, especially if you're doing like a small time app. And Flutter as well. Another good thing about Flutter is that it utilizes a really cool like concept where it kind of takes similar. If you've ever done any sort of development before, where you would have components, it kind of goes ahead and it does what it is fully customizable widgets. And you're going to see exactly what I mean by widgets. It's not that type of widgets where you see on your phone like on the old days where it's like you're installing a little widget onto your phone. It's a little more complex than that, and I like to kind of think of it as similar to like components for any other language. But you're able to completely paint your app instantly, and if you want to see any changes, Flutter has a really cool feature called the hot reload and the hot restart, where you can just rebuild your application right next to you and completely check it out as you go. So with how Flutter works, it compiles every single code into its native code. So anyway, for anyone who wants to get straight into the workshop, we're going to go right into the go.fiu.edu link. It's also provided in the chat in the chat on the side. It is go.fiu.edu/Flutter workshop, and that'll lead you to this Git repo. And it leads you to this Git repo, and it takes you to the skeleton board button application. We're building a really simple application. Last time I did a workshop, I ended up doing a 2-hour application where it was completely building a whole COVID-19 informational app. And for some beginners, that was a lot of information. So I'm going to really simple down for this workshop and try to really explain what's going on. And I built a few things for you already, so you don't have to get super into it, and I'll explain everything that I've already done and provided for you. But you're going to go ahead and you can check out what's going on, what we're learning, and what the application is going to look like. We're going to have a little button, and you can go ahead and push. So I'm hoping that you already have Android Studio or VS Code or whatever you prefer to do installed prior to the workshop. I'm not going to go over the installation process. It is very hefty, and we're working with a very minimal amount of time. So if you do not have it installed, don't worry. This workshop will be recorded and everything will be provided for you afterwards. I'll provide all the source code. Just make sure to tag me and get in the Discord. Even if you don't tag me, I will be pushing all my changes, and I'll be pushing it onto another repository where you can check out all the code. But we're building a very simple app, and it's easy to follow along even if you're not coding alongside me. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and clone this repo. So let's go ahead and copy it. And we're going to go ahead and open up Android Studio. I actually have an instance open already. Let me go ahead and close that so I can do it with you. All right, so we're going to open up Android Studio. And while everything's opening up, I'm going to just make sure and check if anyone has any questions on the chat right now. Just real quick, go ahead. If anything about Flutter, anything that you're confused about at this point. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and keep going. Also, can everyone see my screen correct, like all right and everything? No, you do not need to have prior experience in Flutter. This is a complete beginner workshop. I'm literally building a very basic app. It's simply, you're literally pushing, it's called the board button app. You're pushing a button and it increments a counter, which is actually one of the default Flutter applications. When you first build an app, the Flutter team provides you a model where it looks just like that, but we're completely rebuilding one from scratch. Let me studio. Let me close this project because there's one open already. Let me see if there's any more questions. The font size a little bigger, please. All right, let me see if I can do that. Well, in Android Studio, it's going to be a little different. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and let's check out a project from version control. So we're going to click on checkout project from version control, and we're going to click get, and we're going to paste that link that we did here, and you can put your application wherever you want it. You can redirect it. For my case, I have a folder on my desktop called Flutter Projects, and I'm going to go ahead and clone it into there. It can take a little second. For the slide and source code, I will be providing it after the workshop. I'll try to put in a link for you. The slide's only 3 slides, so I didn't really think anyone want it. Let me see. Would you like to create an app? So when it says, would you like to create an Android Studio project for the sources you have checked out, you're going to click no. And we're going to go ahead and open an existing Android Studio project. And let's go straight to wherever you cloned it. So in my case, it's my Huawei, which I'm using. And we're going to go to, I believe it's in my desktop. We're going to go to desktop. I have it in Flutter projects. Where is it? Actually, it's under my OneDrive. So let's go to my OneDrive. I'm in my OneDrive. We're going to go to my desktop, and then we're going to go to Flutter projects, and it's right here, skeleton board button. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to push it. And then it opened up, and it's right here. Cool. So when your app starts off, you're going to basically have this, and you're going to have a project on your left-hand side. And then we're going to have a lib, all this. You have an Android and iOS folder. So basically when Flutter compiles, it compiles into the machine's native language for those languages that you're trying to compile to, such as Android and iOS. So we're going to go ahead and we're not going to touch any of that. We're going to go to the main file. So here's what I already gave you guys. And the first thing I want you guys to do is when you start the application, I want you to go ahead and type in Flutter Doctor. If you have Flutter installed on your system, it's going to go ahead and clean the project, make sure everything's compiled for your system, and it lets you know everything's all right. It's a little check mark, Flutter's stable, and it's going to check something else as well. Awesome, it's done. Not installed. I got some basic errors. One's for VS Code, which I'm not actually using for this workshop, and the other error is for something else, but the project is clean and ready to go. So we can go ahead and just enable Dart support. All right. And we're going to get dependencies. When you first download, go ahead and type in get depend. It's going to press get dependencies up here. It could also say pub get. You could run pub get in your term. It can say package get. You can go ahead and write package get. And you're going to notice when you first start your application, it's going to, it's not going to run when you try to run it in an emulator, which I've already opened up for you, by the way. So if you have an emulator, go ahead and open it up. And the other issue is a lot of these things have not been created yet. I have 2 imports that we're not using, but we're going to go ahead and make those. I just want to explain what everything's going on over here. And before we start even building the application, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the slides, and I'm just going to go over what we're building, and I'm going to talk about what exactly this is on the left. So I went ahead and I just built this very simple little diagram. It's like a little tree that explains what our app is going to consist of on a very basic, simple level. So essentially, our application, if we look at it like this, you can maybe think about it like, what are we looking at? And you can look at what we're looking at, and you can see automatically we have a text. It's like a little title that says board button. You have another text underneath it that says press the button to start. And then you have our number, which is our counter. So every time you push the button, the counter increments. And then you have our little button that I've already designed for you and applied for you in the little package below. So in this, I'm going to explain what everything's going on. So when you start an application, you kind of want to have everything. I like to think of everything inside of like a little cardboard box, and you have a cardboard box inside of another cardboard box, and you have all these components that are inside of each other. So you have a scaffold. The scaffold is what we're going to be building our application in. It's a default material component that allows us to build our app and fledge it out. Inside of our scaffold, we're going to have a container. This container is going to hold the entire application, everything inside these borders right here. So everything that's white around here is inside of our scaffold. And over here, we have inside of the container, we have a column. The reason we have a column is you can see everything is lined up together in one straight line. So the best widget on Flutter that we can use for something like this is a column. If we wanted everything to be horizontal, we would use something called a row. So in this instance, we're not going to be using a row, we're going to be using a column. Now you're going to notice that our column has 4 different children. As children is what we call them in Flutter when we have, these are all, so for example, this is our parent widget, our scaffold. Our scaffold is the parent widget to our container, and our container is our parent widget to our column. And the column is a parent to these 4 children. So these are all children except the scaffold, which is our parent. And every single one of these widgets is a child of the column widget. So we're going to be utilizing a text widget, another text widget, another text widget, and a button. So this is our button right here, and we're going to be building it out ourselves. And you'll see that Flutter is very intuitive. They built a lot of things. There's a lot of community support, and they allow you to build different widgets and just push them all together and build your app like you're just kind of painting something all together and just hot reloading it. So you'll see what I mean as we do this. So right off the bat, we're going to get a lot of errors, and we're not going to be able to run our app. It's not going to run. We're going to get a few errors, but we can go ahead and start building it. So essentially, we have our main.dart page. In here, I'm importing package Flutter material art because we're building a material app. So we're going to be pulling that from the Flutter package. Over here, we have importing screens home screen.dart. What does that mean? That means we haven't actually created this folder yet. This is something I'm going to be creating. It doesn't exist. And over here, we have the void main. Now, for people that aren't familiar with programming in general, the main method is like the entry point to your Dart application or any application. When your project first starts running, it's going to look for your main function. Your compiler is going to look for your main function, and it's going to execute your main function first. So just like any sort of program, we're going to have our main function, and this little symbol right here just means return. So if you have like over here we have our class, our my app class, and it says return. This is just another way in Dart to write return. We're going to run an app, and that app is going to be called my app. So now we're going to define what my app means right here. We're extending it onto a stateless widget, and we're going to override that. And then over here, we're just building the widget. So we're building everything inside of the widget, and we're going to be returning the material app and defining the material app that we're building. So my app is going to be a material app that consists of a home screen of home screen. So let's go ahead and start building that. It's very easy to understand when you start putting everything together. So let's go ahead and let's first go ahead and make a new folder. Let's call it, also before I get to that, sorry, I also provided you this images folder that I already created. And inside of the images, we're going to have a button down.png and a button up.png. And you'll see why we have that later, but I just want you to know that we have that. So if you want to find it later on in the project, it's right there. So let's go ahead and go to our lib, and we're going to go right click on our package, and we're going to make a new directory. We're going to call this directory screens. We're only going to have one screen in this project, but normally it's, I think it's kind of, it's good. Wow, I can't think of the word. It's good habit, I guess. That's what I'm not trying to say, but it's a good habit to kind of have all your screens in one folder, all your widgets in one folder. The bigger the project, you're gonna have to put more things together, like widgets for a certain screen. But in this instance, we're only gonna have one screen, but let's go ahead in our screen and let's create a file, and let's call it home_screen.dart. And in our home screen, it's going to say, do you want to add the following to Git? I'm going to go ahead and click cancel for now, as I already have something pushed up. And then we're going to go ahead and start building our home home screen. So on our home screen, like usual, let's go ahead and import Flutter material. So we can do package. You can click tab if you're on Android Studio. You can click tab and it'll autocomplete for you. Package Flutter /material dot dart, and that should be good. Let me just make sure what's going on here. The URL package, blah, 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 blah. Let me get dependencies, make sure everything's all right. Let me go ahead and just run pub-get real quick too, just in case. Okay. Well, for now, we're going to go ahead and just continue. We're going to import our package, and we're going to import, actually, we can just leave it at that. So let's go ahead and build our home screen. So similar to how we defined our main function over here, we're going to go ahead and define our home screen. So our home screen, we can actually, there's a cool little cheat code you can do. We can just type STFUL, and we're going to build a stateful widget. And let's go ahead, and when you build a stateful widget, it builds a state. Now, explaining states and stateful widgets and stateless widgets and state modification is a little complex for a 45 to 1 hour workshop. So I'm going to actually let you know, refer you to the Flutter documentation on flutter.dev.docs, I believe. They have a lot of good documentation to understand how states are manipulated and what states are. But for now, I just want you to understand that we have a home screen, which is a stateful widget. And inside of that home screen, we're going to have a widget that's a state. And the state is going to be manipulated right here inside of our stateless widget when we call it. So we're changing states inside of our main.app. So let's go ahead, and I think we can leave it as home screen. And we're going to go ahead and change this container to a scaffold. We're going to return a scaffold because, like I showed you in the previous image right here, we're going to go ahead and build a material scaffold. And inside that scaffold, we're going to go ahead and start building all these little things out. Let me take a second and stop for like 2-3 minutes and make sure everyone and no one has any questions or anything. So let me go ahead and go right here, and I'm going to check right here. Sorry. Also, by the way, my friend Nazmul Huck will be answering any questions in the chat below on the right. Let me just make sure there's any questions that I've skipped. Blah blah blah. Can you present? Thank you, Naz, for helping out. Everyone else good up to this point, kind of following along. Even if you're not coding, does everything make sense? Yeah, I'll switch to that. That's fine. Give me 1 second. How do I? Oop, awkward. It's my face. Let's go to, where is it? Android emulator. Where's my Android Studio? That's weird. I don't see it. Give me a second. I can't. There you go. I think I found it. Nope, that's not it. I can't seem to find Android Studio in my windows that I can share for you guys. Everything else seems to be there except Android Studio. I might just have to stick with screen one for now. I'm not going to say Flutter is easier than React Native. I think it's easier to get a lower. I think it's easier to deploy a Flutter application really quickly and start testing it out for simple applications. Something that's not heavy, but for an application where you have a lot of functionality, the Google Flutter is technically a very new framework that's developed in 2016 by the Google team. And there's a lot of support from it from the community, and but not as much as React Native yet, in my opinion. So I would say React Native is still has a little bit of a better support and community support and more functionality. But as for getting an app um, quickly deployed, I believe Flutter has an edge on that. If you just want to make a quick application, you can literally just make it in just maybe a few hours. Let's go ahead and go back to Android Studio. No one seems to have any questions. Okay. Mm-hmm. Let me just try something. Okay, I'm seeing an error, but it's fine. We'll get to that when the time comes. Okay, so we have our scaffold, and inside of our scaffold, we're going to go ahead and we're going to build our scaffold has a few parameters that we can manipulate. So we have something called a body and a few parameters similar to other language where we have a body and our body is going to contain a container. So essentially we don't need to call our container a child because our body already has one child that we can instantiate inside of it. So in that case, it's going to be our container. But I am seeing a little bug right now. I think my project isn't registering as a Flutter app. So give me 1 second and let me try to see if I can fix that real quick. Let me see. Let me try to do Flutter clean project. This should maybe fix it. I believe I ran that the first time. No pubspec.yaml found. It's not true. All right. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure I'm in the right directory. Flutter, OneDrive, desktop. Flutter project, skeleton board project. That's weird. Give me 1 second. Let me fix this real quick. I'm gonna have to open a new VS Studio project real quick, an Android Studio project, and let me just fix it. Should take me 1 second. Sorry about that. Think I know what's happening. I think I accidentally hit a setting earlier that turned it into a non-Flutter app. All right, creating a new Flutter project, and I'm just going to transfer the code over real quick. It'll only take me like 1 second. Well, let's do a new window. Sorry about that. It's weird. Never had this error before. Of course, it happens when I'm teaching a workshop. Okay. Yep, everything's working now. Cool. So I'm just going to go ahead and move the screen over to the screen. And I'm going to move this screen over to that screen. Skeleton. Let's copy the images and move that into my. Awesome. Okay, cool. So we're going to go ahead and work on this page. We don't need that other one now. All right, cool. So you'll notice all the errors are gone. I officially made it into a Flutter project. It was running as an Android project earlier. I think I didn't see a step and I just ran it. But yeah, all the errors are gone. All my imports are working. So sorry, we're back on track. If anyone else has that issue, maybe try to reclone the project as a Flutter project. I think I don't know where I slipped, but I accidentally didn't make it a Flutter project. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go and build our container. And in our container, like I said, we're going to have a child, and our child is going to be a column. And that column is going to have some children, because a column can have multiple children. There's a few widgets in Flutter that can have multiple children. So a container can have one child. There's some single child layout widgets, and there's some multi-layout widgets. So we can go to this flutter.dev documentation, and Flutter actually, their documentation is very detailed, and it tells you all the single child layout widgets and all the multi-child layout widgets. So if you're ever confused like what has multiple children and what has single children or a single child, you can go here. So your single child layouts, some of them consist of the center, the container, the fitted box, some of the more popular ones, the overflow box, the padding. And then over here, you have multi-child. So typically, you're going to be using stuff like the column, the grid view, a stack, a row, and a stack, a row, and you can read all the documentation for what these things do. But specific to this project, we're going to be talking about a column. So a column allows everything to be lined up singularly, vertically in a singular line, and it has multiple children. So the first child, we can go back and refer to our thing, is our diagram is a text, another text, another text, and a button. So let's go ahead and design how that looks. So our first one is going to be a text, and simply all you have to do is type in text, and you can go ahead and inside of that we can put board button, because that's what we're building. And we can go ahead and test whatever we have on screen now. Since there's no more errors, we're copying this home screen, and we built this in our home screen so far. So let's see what our project looks like at the moment. So we're going to go ahead and run that on our emulator, and at the moment I have the finished project right here. And it's just we're going to go ahead and it's going to go ahead and run and assemble Gradle. It takes a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and talk a little more and go a little bit ahead, because all we're doing is just building a few more text widgets. So let's do text, and inside of our text we can do press the button to start. So we can do press the button to start, and then I have these little brackets around them, and that's it. Then we can go ahead and build another text widget. And this text widget is just going to have our number in it. So we can go ahead and put 0 in there for now. And you'll see why we're putting 0. It'll make more sense. We're going to talk about how we're going to get it to every time you press a button to put a new button. So let's go ahead and now build a we're actually not going to build a button, because as you can tell, Flutter has a few button widgets that are already pre-made for you that are just little buttons that you can click on them once. But the only downside to those buttons, for example, the flat button icon is the most popular button in Flutter, and the flat button, and it only has a few functions to it. So it has the on press and the on long press. Now what that means is for our application, we want to be able to tap this, and you can hold your hand, you can hold your finger here, and you can keep the button pushed down. Now we want it to be able to do that, but a typical button you can only press it once, or you can hold it once, but it wouldn't go down. It only has one activation. So we're going to this thing called a gesture detector. So a gesture detector just basically does exactly what it sounds like. It detects gestures of a user, and it allows you to add a lot more functionality to your button that you're building. So in our case, we're going to have a child, and let's go ahead and put a image widget. And since our image widget has a cool call that we can do that allows you to call the asset. Now, we're not going to be able to do this just yet, but what this means is we're going to be able to call one of the images from the ones that I pre-made for you over here at the top left. So our app is building and everything's instantiating around us. You're going to see the project is now open. And if we go to our emulator, this is how it looks. So at the moment, it's really hard to see probably, but the board button is all the way up there in the top left, and it's really hard to see what's going on. And we're gonna fix all that when we stylize everything. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and do this. And I'm gonna make sure we can see our emulator so I can show you how cool the hot reload is. Let's move everything around a little bit. All right, cool. So over here, we're gonna have an image asset, but we can't call this image yet because our package doesn't know that we're doing that. And let me go ahead and take a quick second to see if anyone has any questions. Sorry. Um, yeah, unfortunately, Android Studio does not allow me to zoom in. Actually, as far as I don't know how to zoom in on my code on Android Studio. I know on VS Code, it's very easy. You can just zoom in. But let me see. Let me just make sure anyone has any questions. I don't want to skip over. Thank you, Naz, for answering that question. That takes time to deploy. Yeah, Flutter takes time to compile the language into native in iOS when you first launch it. But the cool thing is you don't have to run the application every time except when you install a new package. And we're about to do just that. So I'll show you. Um, oh, cool. File settings, appearance, font size. Let me do that for you real quick. File, appearance. Maybe it's view. Oh, it's view appearance. Yeah. Font size, font size, font size. Let me see. File settings appearance. File settings appearance and font size. Let's see. Cool. Let's try that out. That just made everything else bigger instead of the actual code. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I'll give it one more quick try, but file settings editor. Control plus does not work on Flutter, like I'm sorry, on Android Studio like that. Scroll down. Presentation mode 24, 18. I'm not running on presentation mode, but all right, I think that should be good enough for now. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and presentation is on font size editor on the left side. I'll look through it again in a second. I just want to quickly talk about the pub spec. So child image asset, and we're gonna go to our pubspec.yaml, and this is kind of where a lot of this happens. Yeah, we're going to be posting this recording on, I believe, YouTube and somewhere else later on, like a Google Drive. After the workshop, they're going to announce it in the Discord, so just keep on lookout for that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of some of this text. And we don't need any of this text over here. This is just from the Flutter team to let you know what a lot of the cool things you can do in the pub spec, some information for if you want to do custom edits and anything like that. We're going to be working very simple here. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of anything that's commented out. So let's just go ahead and delete all that. We don't need any of this at the bottom, so we can just, all right, cool. So over here where it says Flutter, we're going to go ahead and add this section called assets. So we do assets, and then over here we're going to do /images. I believe it says images slash, and that should allow us to import any images from this folder right here. All right, awesome. So yeah, that's going to allow us to do that. So once we do any changes in the pubspec.yaml, anytime we do any changes, anytime we add a dependency, anything, we always do pub-get. And that allows Flutter, our Flutter application to pull any package changes inside of there. So I made a mistake. It says begot images string. Please correct. Okay, one sec. Let me do something real quick. There we go. I made a quick boo-boo. There we go. So the actual format for this is like this. So we're going to go ahead and delete that. You need the little dash right there. So it should be assets, and it should be in line with the uses material design. We can move this back one as well, and it should be hyphen space images and /. So now we do pub-get. Awesome, it finished, everything ran, and now we can go back to our code and we can go to our home screen.dart and we can go ahead and do / images and / it's called button. Let's do button up.png. So what this allows us to do is going to pull a child and it's going to put it in our gesture detector right there. So let's go ahead and change, run any changes. So here's a cool thing about Flutter. I just pressed a button right there and I didn't show you exactly what it did. But this button right here is called the hot reload. So anytime you want to make any instant changes onto Flutter, Flutter has this really cool option where you can just press the hot reload, or in this case, you can press Control S and save it, and it would automatically reload the application and process any changes onto your emulator once you ran it. So it's very awesome. You can see any changes you're making right as you go. And we have our little button right there called Push Me. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to continue. And now we want to give this button some functionality. I can't right now, if I do anything, it doesn't do anything at all. I can click on it 100 times. It won't do anything at all. So let's go ahead. And the first thing I want to do is I want to start stylizing this text up here. So let's go ahead, and that's really easy. On Flutter, right under our text, we can go ahead and type in this word style, and then we can go ahead and style, we can call a text style widget. So our text style widget allows us to go ahead and do stuff like color, give it some color. So let's go ahead. It's already black, but let's go ahead and add black to it. Colors.black. So now our text is black. Now, if we want to go ahead and give our colors some, our font size some size. So in my case, I like to put 50 on this. I think it'll look best. So let's go ahead and do Control S, and I pressed Control S. It's the hot reload, and all of a sudden our board button looks a lot bigger. So let's go ahead and stylize. But the thing is, I wanted to match that font that we have going on in the slide over here. It looks kind of like this cool pixel arty thing that we have. So how do we do that? So there's two ways to go about that. There's one way where you can go to your pubspec.yaml, and the same place you have assets, you can actually install a font if you want. The same way you did your images, you can have a fonts folder and have your fonts in there. Or another way you could do that, or you can have the fonts imported directly, like through a import code off like fonts.google. But the Google team has actually done something really cool. They've developed something on Flutter, a package, a dependency that we can go ahead and import called Google Fonts. So it's Google_fonts, and then just do this. So notice how the Cupertino icons right here from iOS has a little version right here, 0.1.3. Google Fonts also has a version, but if you just leave it like this, it's going to call for the latest version of Google Fonts at that moment. So if we just leave it blank like this, we're done. It's just going to call the latest version of Google Fonts. So now that we installed a new dependency, we have to hit pub get again. And normally when you actually call a new package from the internet or anything like that, or from anywhere else, or install it, you should always restart your app, hard restart it by stopping it and playing it again. But in my case, I think a hot restart for Google Fonts just might be good enough. Let's try it out. So the cool thing about Google Fonts on Flutter is that you can actually just replace text style, and you can just type in Google Fonts. And let's say the font that I want is called dot press. I believe it's press start TP. So press start to play. And that actually, yeah, I can't actually do it right now. So let me do hot restart, and let me type get dependencies again. Yeah, it's not going to work. So I have to stop my app entirely, and then I'm going to run it again. And while that's happening, I'm going to explain what I just did. So when I replaced the text style widget is actually equivalent right here to Google's Google Fonts custom widget that they have that you can import. So, oh, also, the reason it's not working isn't because I did that. I have to go ahead and import anything I use in my pub spec. So I go to my packages, and you can see right here we have Google underscore fonts, Google fonts.dart. So now we can go ahead and call Google Fonts like we did. So if we go ahead and do that again, you'll see it's not going to be yellow. It's gonna be yellow now. It's gonna call class, run it. I just tried to start the app, but it wasn't defined. So let me run it again. But yeah, you can see now the press start to play is now yellow. It's actually calling Google Fonts. That was a mistake from my side, my bad. So we had to import Google Fonts from our packages. So we imported Google Fonts, and now anytime we do any changes to our fonts, it's going to go ahead. So it's going to automatically call that font from Google Fonts. So the font name from Google Fonts is press start to play. And we can do the same thing over here. So I'm going to go ahead and type style, and under our font, and I'm going to do Google Fonts dot press start to play. And then over here, I'm going to give it a color, and I'm going to give it colors dot black. I'm going to go ahead and give it a font size. For this font, I think I'll give it just 10, a font size of 10. And the app should be running now. It's going to run Gradle in a few seconds. Let me go ahead and see if there's any questions. Now, I should be answering most of them, but what is the dependency you added in your pub spec again? So I went ahead and I added Google underscore fonts, and you would add the little colon right afterwards. I hope that helped, Cole. Cool. So now our application is done running, and we're going to probably be able to see the changes in 1 second. There we go. It did not pull Google Fonts, so let me make sure everything's all right. Oh, there it is. Okay, so it says board button, and then the other one didn't pull. Let me make sure I didn't put any spelling errors or anything like that. No, it's all right. Let me hot restart one more time. Should update soon, but for now, you're going to notice how everything is kind of like touching the border and everything, and we don't really like that. We want it to look exactly how it did in the workshop. It all centered out like that. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. So we can go to our container right here, right? And our container has a really cool parameter that we can call called padding. Similar to a child, we're going to be calling padding, and the padding, the way you install padding is you can go and give it edge insets. Now, what that means is we're going to go to our dot symmetric. Let me show you. And our dot symmetric has a few ways we can do it. So we can do vertical. So we're going to give it a vertical of 50. And let's give this one a horizontal of, let's say, about 30. I think 30 is all right. And let's go ahead and save that. And you'll notice how everything just moved kind of like inwards. Let me show you how that looks. There's a cool way you can look at it too. So here's our app. And if we go to our app, we can actually do the debugger, and you can look at it this way. Everything, this little blue area right here, is actually the outside of our container. Everything on the outside right here is the outside of our container, and the padding essentially is what the blue is. It just pushes our container inwards. It squeezes our container in. So the padding is the outside of the app, and typically in application designing, your margin's kind of like the outside of everything. So like it would be pushing the application out. So we have our blue, and it just pushes our app in, and everything is like that. So, but our text is still kind of bordering the left. We don't like that. So we can go ahead and underneath our board button, we can give it a text align, and let's give it a text align of center, and you can autofill. So it's text align colon text align dot center. We're gonna go ahead and save it, and our board button's like that. Everything's still kind of squished together. That's fine. I just want to show you that. So currently our image, our our gesture detector is just giving us one image, and we're not actually detecting anything. We're just kind of have an image on our file. So let's go ahead and fix that really quick. So on our gesture detector, there's a few things that we can do. So we can do an on tap. And on tap, there's actually another one we could do called on tap down. So what this means is when you're tapping the anything that whatever gesture you're detecting, when it's tapped down. So in this case, our gesture detector is just basically this image right here. And when you push on that image, we want it to do something. So we're going to call it for a tap. It's looking for a tap. So Flutter actually has the entire whatever a tap is defined in its documentation. You can go check that out. It's really cool the way it detects a tap. And we're going to call a function right here. So inside of our function, we're going to do a set state. Now, what this means is that anytime you tap on this button on this image, we want it to set the state of the app and change the state of the application. So whenever you change a state in Flutter, it's going to rebuild the entire widget. In this case, our widget is our scaffold right here. Everything inside of here, every time you change a state, because we're inside of a state, every time we change a state, it's going to rebuild the entire widget really quick. That's actually not that efficient. What normally you would want it to do is you want to rebuild only certain things. So in like a really complicated dynamic application, you would want to be calling your widgets from somewhere else and have those widgets rebuild. And then instead of the whole page rebuilding every time a user does any sort of change, you want to only change what's happening in that widget. So there's ways to do that. But in our case, we're actually changing pretty much everything on the page. So it's all right for us. But if you're doing a really large scale application or any application with a lot of different features going on, typically you don't want to just rebuild your widget, your entire home screen every single time you do any sort of change. So every time we tap on this button, we're changing the state of the application. So let's do a little comment. So when pressing, we're going to do image. Let's go ahead and do something. So we have two images actually. We don't only have one image. We have a button that's pushed up and a button that's pushed down. So we're going to go a button that's down and a button that's up. So let's go ahead and go right above here, and let's define what an image is. So sorry, a button is. So let's do an image for whenever the image is up, we're going to do image. An image of image up is an image dot asset. So we're going to call an asset again, and we're going to go ahead and type in images slash button up dot png. So basically, this image right here, this image object that we just made, is pointing to our image over here. So whatever our image of the button being up is pointing over there. So over here, we're going to do image of an image down is equal to an image dot is pointing to an image of asset images slash button down dot png. Awesome. So we're getting a little error right here. Let me see what's going on. And oh, that's fine. Okay, we're not actually using any of this yet, I believe, so it should be fine. Yeah, that's cool. So let's go ahead and let's define what an image also is. So we're just gonna have an image. And that should be pretty much everything we need. And I also want to do one more quick little thing. So whenever this starts up, we also want it to do one more thing. So let's go ahead and we can type init and call an init state. So what this means is that whenever our home screen is called, it's going to initialize an init state. So whatever is inside of our init state, our initialized state, that's going to go first. So not like before the main. In this case, it's going to initialize everything. So we're going to initialize, it's happening in the background. It's asynchronous. It's happening on its own. So we're going to go ahead and define what image is. It's image.up. And then we're going to do one more thing. Let me see what's going on over here. I didn't pay attention. Image of image up. Oh, I'm noticing we're running out of time soon too. Can't be accessed in an initializer. Let me see what's going on. Extends home state screen. Should be fine. Let me see if I'm overlooking anything. Let me do this real quick. Okay. Image equals image up. And then this is not working. Let's just do constant image, and then constant image. Let me fix that in a second. Actually, this is fine. That should be fine. I'm going to go over that in a second. But anyway, so over here, we're going to do our set state. And every time we tap on the button, we want it to we want to have the button that's up being pressed. So let's go ahead and do that. So our current image, the current image that we have, the one that we defined, the one that starts. So in our initialized state, when the application starts, our image, the one that's right here, is always going to equal image up because the button's naturally going to be up. So let's go ahead and do image when you're tapping it down, it's going to be image is pointing to image down. Oh, it's image down. And anytime you do on tap down, so that's something we haven't defined yet. So let's go ahead and do an on tap. I think I'm still inside of Okay, cool. So right here we can do on tap up, I believe. Expected to find. There we go. We have to be careful with our commas. So we have on tap up, and we're going to have inside of here, we're going to have a tap again. We're going to look for a tap, and then we're going to have our function. And inside of our function, we're going to have our when not being pressed, when default, it's going to be image is equal to image up. So every time we're not touching it, when we release the tap, it's going to go back to image up. So we have 4 minutes remaining. I want to see if I can get something going for you really quick. But the rest of the code for when the complete application, I will be pushing it up. I just want to make sure what I'm doing here. Okay, image up. I wonder, let me see what's going on. Counter equals image up, override. Should be fine. Let me see. Stateful widget, state, and then I am trying to do what here? Variables declared must be using constant. I tried. This doesn't make sense. Okay, there we go. And this should be an image as well. Well, that's fine. Okay, so we have, oh, wow, sorry, I'm dumb. We're declaring images. So this is an image, this is an image. We have to put semicolons when we're declaring when we're declaring our variables. That was me. Sorry, it's 1 a.m. Yeah, so we have our semicolons. So normally when you have a function in Flutter at the bottom, you're gonna have like commas to separate what each function is. And Flutter will actually reformat everything for you too. It's really cool on Android Studio. So image, we're declaring what our image is, and we're saying that image up is an image object of image, and it means button up. So let's go ahead and let's hot restart our application. Instead of a hot reload, we're going to do a hot restart. And now when let me get rid of this, this debug paint. And now when we push on it, hold on, should be going down. Give me 1 second. Sometimes the emulator acts weird. It just pushed on my screen, but it didn't show. Let me hot restart again. It's being weird. Let me see if I made any boo-boos. Upstate, set state, set state. Yeah, I made a boo-boo right here. So inside of our on tap up, we want to do a set state again because we are changing the state of the application. So let's just move this right here, and that should actually fix it. Let me see. That's weird. Let me see. There's one way to check if it's actually working or not. So what we could do is we could do a little print in my terminal right here. So let's go ahead and print hello, and I'm going to hot reload. Okay, so it is detecting the push. The image isn't changing. I actually think that's a weird. I think I have to stop the app and run it again. It's an error on the emulator. It should be. It is changing, so the image should be changing on both. But yeah, it isn't for some reason. But it is working. You can have my word on that. But let me stop the app and run it. But I think we are running out of time. Unfortunately, they're going to kick me out any second. So let me go ahead and see if anyone has any questions. I will push the entire application when it's complete with the counter changing and everything, and I'll put entire documentation. But yeah, I'm sorry about that. The emulator is acting weird. Hopefully, I can show you with the button changing how it looks. I think I already showed you on the complete app, but if anyone have any questions, it's about my time. I can answer anything. I'm also going to be in the Discord if you have any questions about Flutter. If you're planning to use Flutter during ShellHacks, go ahead and tag me. My my not Instagram, my Discord is at Raheem Idris. I'm one of the organizers for Shell. So just go ahead and tag me in ShellHacks, or go ahead and make a mentor ticket. If you have something about Flutter, I'll be sure to help you out. I had a lot of weird bugs tonight, unfortunately. Sorry, but that took up like 5-10 minutes, and the whole zooming in and zooming out. But if you have any questions, be sure to tag me. I do want to, hopefully, if the app runs, I can show you a little bit. We're actually pretty much almost done with the application. There's like a little counter that I have set up, which is only like 4 more lines of code. All we're doing is changing the text. Every time that we click on the button, it would change the text that we have set up. And yeah, but sorry a lot about the bugs. I wish I could have finished the entire application for you. But if you have any questions, please let me know, like I said in Discord. Yeah. Okay, hopefully it works right here. If not, I'm completely lying to you guys. Oh, the app's not running right now. All right, cool. Let's see. Whatever. Point is, oh, yeah. Point is, the button's not changing, but yeah. Everyone, if like I said, any questions, I'm gonna be closing this workshop here now. I believe one of the moderators will close it. I'll stay around for a few questions. If you have any questions now about Flutter, if you want to get into building a Flutter application, what are some things you could do with Flutter? If you want to do Flutter for ShellHacks, I'm here for any Flutter questions, as also Naz's and anybody else. But yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm right here. Thank you for attending the workshop. I hope you enjoy ShellHacks. We're going to be doing a lot of cool events. We're going to be playing Among Us a few nights, and there's a lot of other cool workshops going on as from some of our sponsors and a lot of our talented eBoard and a lot of our talented members of UPE. So go make sure to go check that out. But like I said, if you have any questions, message me on Discord or leave a message right here in the chat.